Welcome to this video on optimizations. Now I am assuming that you have seen the video on loading and saving set files, and if during the tutorial you find this a little bit advanced, I urge you to pause the recording and carry out whatever research you need to carry out and then continue with the recording, because we will be covering some fairly advanced mathematical matters. So anyway, here goes. We'll go and first of all load Strategy Tester within the MetaTrader platform, and that is by clicking on the view, selecting Strategy Tester. I'm not going to go into too many of these inputs because we did cover them in the previous video, but we'll use Euro USD, and we've got Strategy Traders Gift already selected. So I'm just going to go ahead and click on Expert Properties. Now, for the purposes of the first optimization, we're going to select just standard inputs of stop loss, take profit, and the RSI variables, which are the period, the top level and bottom level. Just digressing for a moment, I know I did cover this in the last video, but I will reinforce it. This box here, genetic algorithm, needs to be ticked. Now, the reason for that is that we do have quite a significant number of iterations involved in optimization. An iteration is simply a step through each value of all the variables over the whole time frame. Now, as an example, if you have 8 variables and there are 8 steps in each variable, there's 16.8 million iterations required. If we take that out to 8 variables but with 10 steps, it goes up from 16 million to 100 million iterations. And if we were to go from 10 variables by 10 steps, we're up to 10 billion variations. So I think you can understand that it is necessary as a mathematician to make some assumptions to achieve a working genetic algorithm. And that is why it is important to tick this box, because you'll see that what MetaTrader 4 does is that it uses in its algorithm a means of reducing the total number of variables by the total number of steps back to a maximum of around about 11,000. So you'll see this in action in a moment. So I'm going to go back to the inputs. We've set up the RSI variables plus a simple stop loss take profit scenario. And I'm going to go ahead and click on OK. We are going to optimize this, so I'll tick the optimization box over 3 months and we'll press start. Now, the first thing I want you to notice here is that when we start, you can see that the total number of iterations is 1.7 million. But MetaTrader has reduced this down to 10,496 iterations. Now, that is what the genetic algorithm is all about. It is by intelligently looking at the total number of iterations and determining what is significant and what isn't, and then carrying out the significant iterations within the total number of 1.75 million. Now, this is finished now. So what we can do, because it was an optimization, is now look at the optimization results. Now, when they first appear in the list, they are randomly placed according to the pass number. Now, the pass in this particular case went right through to 10,696 or whatever it was, but it's only selected the first 1,670, and these are the only ones, I think from memory, which display positive results. So what we need to do is to get these into an order, we need to click on a column. Now, I would suggest you click on the profit column. First time you click on it, it's going to sort them by ascending order. But we're more interested in the largest profit, so we're going to just sort them by descending order. It's also important that that scroll bar be right up the top when you look at this. And we can see that the best pass was 1,672. The total trades are 31. The drawdown was 7.51%. And looking down here, I would urge you to look at the drawdown, because sometimes you can have a a great profit figure, but a drawdown which is too high. And when we get into the advanced optimizations, this will certainly be the case. Now, if we want to, we can automatically transfer those values over to the input area. And the way to do this is to double click the selection that you wish to use. We're going to double click the top one because the drawdown is acceptable in the range of drawdown. So a double click is going to transfer that over to expert properties. If we click on the expert properties, we'll now see that those values have been transferred to take profit, which is now sitting at 100, and stop loss, which is now sitting at 90. And if we go down to the RSI, we've got periods optimized at 10, the top level 80, bottom level 50. Now I wanted to go back out of that just for a moment and show you this optimization graph. Now this is in shades of green, and the darker shades of green are the stronger optimizations, but the drawback with Strategy Tester within MT4 is that will only gives you a 2D representation of your optimization, and will always work on the last two variables being optimized. Now, as you know, in Traders Gift, we have literally up to 100 variables that we can optimize. I certainly don't recommend that you optimize too many variables. In fact, I would say about 16 is a maximum, and not forgetting that we're going through billions of iterations, and whilst both MetaTrader 4 and Strategy Optimizer use a genetic algorithm, they are quite different. And without getting too much into the praises of Strategy Optimizer, MT4 sets a finite limit of 10,696, I think it is, iterations, and no matter how many more variables you add, MT4 will only ever do 10,696 iterations. So the more variables you add, the more assumptions that are being made. Anyway, back to this chart here. What this is showing, the last two variables are bottom level and top level of RSI, and you can see the bottom level having been optimized from 10 to 50, that the strongest or the darkest green is up around the 50 level. So the 50 level was the best performer, and that is simply saying that we get better results when the RSI passes through the 50 level as a bottom level going up. The top level in this situation, now I do know the result of this, but that green there is not as dark as that green there, and that is your best result. When we go back to the optimization results, now you won't necessarily see the whole input because it's wider than the screen. If I expand this out, you're simply going to lose it off the screen video. But what we can do is hover over this particular trade here, and I'll try this and make a liar of me. There it is. You can see the top level is 80 and the bottom level is 50. Actually, the minute I move the mouse, it drops off. But one way of looking at that is that you will get a pop-up if you hover over the highlighted area. And there's the 80 and 50 to the right. Now, let's go back to the settings. Now, the settings is the way to get back to your expert properties. This time we're going to do this optimization, but I'm going to introduce another couple of factors. What we'll do is we'll introduce a stop loss multiplier. Now, I previously have already set up the step of 1 to 2 and steps of 1. I wouldn't recommend going above 2 in stop loss multiplier, because that is simply means that you're doubling your wager with every result that fails to reach a minimum pip gain level. Once you get above 2, you're only going to get 3 or 4 goes before you reach 20%. So I would suggest that you only optimize between 1 and 2%. The take profit, I'm going to deselect that, and I'm going to use the take profit multiplier. That can go out to 2.5. It's not an unreasonable expectation to expect a stop loss of 100 and a take profit of 250. So we've only added one extra variable in actual fact, but when I click on OK now and we start the optimization, I want you to take note of the number of variables, iterations this time. We're up to 16 million this time, where we're 1.75 million before, because there are more steps involved when we're using the take profit multiplier and the stop loss multiplier. think there's 11, 15, 16 in the take profit one and 11 in the stop loss multiplier. So we've gone from, if you like, 9 to 27 steps. Oh, sorry, 11 to 27 steps. So it will take a little bit longer, but once again, it's still locked in at this 10,496 maximum number of iterations, and that's why that's why I did write Strategy Optimizer, because we do need a better algorithm to handle extra factors or extra variables. Now, in this particular case, we'll have a look at the optimization. Double click on the profit column. We can see we've got a vastly improved figure here. So look, at this stage I don't want to cover too much more with MetaTrader with optimizations, because we are limited by that figure of maximum of 10,496 steps, and to me that is a big drawback. MT4 does fulfill its function quite well, but it was never designed for the number of variables that traders give introduce. And if we look at the properties, you can see the number of variables that we are in actual fact using. Each one of these can be optimized. So at this stage we're going to go back over to Strategy Optimizer, and I'm going to discuss this optimization in more detail. So I just brought up Strategy Optimizer at the moment, and as I mentioned in the previous video, it does default to the RSI, and that's by design. If you want to completely zero out everything, you can just click the Reset Optimizations, which simply takes everything back to zero. It does leave that trailing stop loss on, and that is by design, because I don't want you to do any optimizations without using a trailing stop loss. If we want to go back to the defaults again, we click on this one here, and we're back basically where we were before in MT4, where we dropped the take profit, but we introduced the take profit multiple. We do want to reduce some more variables. Now at this stage we have 3 plus 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7 variables. There is no step in Strategy Optimizer, it's just a from and a to, because Strategy Optimizer does make smart calculations relating to steps. I didn't make the source code available in Strategy Optimizer because there was a lot of work involved, frankly, and involves some fairly advanced maths to work out a situation where we could start increasing the number of variables but not compromise the iterations. We still have to obviously cut them down and look at areas that can be optimized and areas that have little effect on optimization, but the algorithm is much better than MetaTrader 4, and that's why I do suggest that when we're starting to work with multiple strategies, that, and in view of the fact that the iterations are going up dramatically, that we do not compromise on the value of any of the variables. But what I'm going to do in this situation is I'm going to click these three here, because as I mentioned in my wrap-up of money management yesterday on the forum, I do believe that these three, I'll leave out use trailing stop loss, plus these three do form the backbone of any optimization. We're seeing that in CCI volume. Admittedly, it's cycling around a little bit at the moment, and it may have passed its use-by date, but the money management, optimization of money management variables has made a significant difference to our return, and I don't believe that realistically that what we have achieved is an achievable goal in the long term. And we've grown a balance of 10,000 up to over 30,000. It's back sitting down around 22, 24,000 now, but to expect anything like 100% gain in 1 month is fairly significant, and it has been by the use of these variables here. So once again, we're up to 3 plus 3 is 6, 9 variables, and we're into the billions, literally into the billions of iterations required. So let's go ahead, and we've got our date selected, the last 3 months to the end of April. The data source is selected. We've got AUD, so we'll go ahead and carry out this optimization. Now it's going to make a liar of me here, but I will select that again because I had previously selected it when I set this up. So I was going through and selecting the checking the integrity of the data, and now it's ready to do the optimization. I might have pressed the wrong button before. I think that was the problem. Okay, stepping through now. This is a lot faster than Strategy Tester within MT4, and it's not easy always to get this percentage of completion just exactly correct, because, as I said, the genetic algorithm is fairly advanced, and we don't know for sure that some variables are going to be dwelled upon more than others because they have a greater effect on the overall optimization. And this might seem slow and laborious, but really once you start to introduce another variable, it's going to slow down more. And I try to, in all my set files, particularly the ones that we're publishing through MyFX book, introduce extra considerations such as candles, maybe divergence. But when you start combining strategies, you really have to consider expanding the maximum bars look back and even running an optimization on them if you introduce two strategies. Now look, that got through, and we're up to 35,000, which represents a $25,000 profit. Draw down 8.18%. But I would say to you that if you're only using one strategy, optimize all the money management variables. If you're using two strategies, we'll go back to the inputs, make sure that you tick on at least one of the strategies the ability to look back more than one bar, because the chances of lining up the intersection of two strategies with a buy signal or a sell signal are getting fairly minimal, and you might find that if you start to combine two trades, particularly if you leave the max bars at 1, that you might only have 3 or 4 trades in a 3-month period. And I will demonstrate this in a moment. So just back to our input, and the way to get back to that optimization is that this particular button changes its caption when we use it. So it goes from show optimization to show inputs. Now back here again, you can see this is 8.81%. The second one is 6.15%. A slight difference. We get down to here, and I think we ran through a similar one the other day where we got back to 5%. Now, just a quick recap on, if there's anything you like and you think it bears further investigation, you can save the set file. But one thing I have covered in the forum, which needs to be emphasized, is that when you reload the set file, all these, and I'm back to showing inputs, all these boxes are ticked. So when you click Start Optimization again, it's going to run through the whole of the optimization. And the only way to get it to arrive at the figure that you liked is when you reload it, and you know it's an RSI strategy, you've got to deselect these boxes that are ticked. And if I deselect these boxes, because the values are already in there, we're going to instantaneously go to the best value. And you can see that it simply arrived at the best value. So that's one of the little, if you like, idiosyncrasies of saving set files, is that when you save it, you save the optimized tick boxes as well. So when you reload it, you're going to have to deselect the tick boxes to get back to the actual figure that you like, which is this one here. That's why we don't have a big list, because we're not optimizing anything at the moment. Now, we go back to show inputs. I'm going to reset all the optimization, so we're back to a clean slate. And let's optimize, for an example, EMA cross, which is simply moving average crosses. And we'll also optimize RSI. But to cut down the time period, we'll only optimize stop loss multiple, take profit multiple. And just to emphasize what I said earlier on, that we're only in this situation optimizing these three. These here, I would leave them as they were originally, which was 30, 30, and 5, and let them run on those figures. So if we start this optimization now, by the way, to get these figures into the summaries, enabled strategies, you do need to shift tabs. It won't change until you shift out of the tab. But the minute you shift out of any individual tab, it will give you the summary. So we shifted from EMA cross to over here, and that's why we got that summary showing even before we started. Don't forget we have a lot of tabs and filters and strategy, a total of 12 plus 9, 21 in all. We have 2 strategies enabled, no filters enabled, so let's give this a try now. It's running slower, and so it should, and this is my concern with MT4, is that it won't run any slower once you start enabling extra variables. It's stuck right on that 10,496. This will slow down in the strategy optimizer. Now this particular one, I'm going to wrap up this bit fairly soon because it's getting a little bit long. There was a fair bit to cover in optimizations, and I may give the videos a break for the time being because 4 videos is more than enough on any subject to get you started. Okay, well look, we're up to 78, 79%, but we have the bar lookback set on 1, and I'd be very surprised if we get any trades on this. If we took the lookbacks out to 5, we probably will get some trades, but we'll just see what happens. We did get a few trades. It's not a convincing optimization by any means. It's back to 14,000 when we combine the 2 of them. Just one thing, if we show the trades, and I'll have a look at one of the trades, you can see what I'm talking about, that we have to have the intersection of 2 things happening. In this particular case, we've got to have the RSI passing through the bottom level, and at the same time we're having a cross of the, let me see, the 5 and the 35 EMA. So that for them to occur simultaneously doesn't happen very often. And that's why I urge you to, if you're using multiple strategies, to take the look back bars on at least one of the strategies out to 5. And I can draw an example the other day where I had a question on the forum about a poster had said, I did not get my trades lining up, and he said I saw crosses, but the crosses weren't occurring where the trades were taking place. And I said to him, that is because your maximum bars back was set at 5, and it simply meant that the cross was occurring back here. And because the cross was occurring here, but he was seeing his trade take place there, he said, well, look, there's a problem with the program. And it was quickly solved by reminding him that he had not set his max bars back to 1. You can set the max bars at 0, but look, I would not recommend max bars at 0 because you will get whipsawing of the particular line, the moving average line, because it's fluctuating with the current candle. If you set max bars at 0, you're working with the current candle, and it's not a good situation because you may get, particularly if you're using reversal of trades, you may get reversed out within the same bar. So I do recommend max bars back 1 as a general setting, but if you need to optimize 2 strategies, set one of them out to 5 and run an optimization from 1 to 5. And that's exactly what we're going to do quickly here, just to close up. And we'll go back to hide trades, go back to show inputs. I'm going to lock some of these just to cut down on the time, but we will on this particular one. I'm going to set max bars look back on EMA cross, and we're going to optimize from 1 to 5. So I'll run this optimization again, and that should go through fairly quickly this time. Okay, here we go, and you'll probably see it looks as though it likes the figure of 5. Sometimes you'll see that cycling between 2, 3, 5 or whatever, But in this particular case, we've got it up to 20,000, and that is just simply saying that, look, if we're prepared to go out to 5 bars and look at the cross up to 5 bars ago, we get a much better result. Now, I know this has been long-winded, but we had to discuss a fair bit, so I hope that you've got some value out of it, and thank you for your attention.